When I was 12 years old, I honestly thought life couldn't get any better. My mom and I had gone through so much together after my dad left when I was 8. He didn't just leave, he vanished, like we weren't even worth a goodbye. I remember mom crying in the kitchen that night, holding the divorce papers with shaky hands. I was too young to understand all of it, but I knew one thing. My mom was my entire world, and she promised me, through tears, that she would never let anyone hurt me again. For years, it was just us. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Ohio, and even though money was tight, mom made everything feel like home. She worked long hours at the diner and still managed to help me with school projects, bake cookies on Sundays, and listen to all my silly little stories. She used to say, "Layla, it's you and me against the world." And I believed her. Because no matter what, she always kept her promises. Then one day, everything changed. It was a random Thursday when mom came home from work with this glow on her face, like someone had told her the best news in the world. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands clasped together, her smile soft but nervous. "Layla," she said, "there's someone I want you to meet." I raised an eyebrow. "Someone?" She laughed a little. "His name's Mark. He's special. He makes me happy. And I think you'll like him." At first, I didn't know what to say. For years, mom never dated. She always said she wanted to focus on me. So hearing her talk about a man like that felt weird. Part of me was scared. What if this guy was like my dad? What if he broke her heart too? But when I met Mark, he was nothing like the image I had in my head. He was charming, polite, and funny in this effortless way. He brought me a book on the first day we met because mom had told him I loved reading. "Thought you might like this," he said with this warm smile that actually reached his eyes. And I'll admit, I kind of liked him. Over the next few months, Mark became part of our lives. He'd come over for dinner, tell the funniest stories about his job in real estate, and always made sure to include me in conversations. He didn't treat me like some annoying kid. He treated me like I mattered. One evening, he took us out for ice cream after mom's shift, and as we sat there in the car eating sundaes, he said, "You know, Layla, family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you. And I promise you, I'll always show up for you and your mom." Those words stuck with me. After everything that happened with my dad, hearing someone say that, it felt like healing. Like maybe we could have a real family again. A year later, they got married. I was a bridesmaid, wearing this pale pink dress that mom picked out. She looked so happy that day, like all the pain from before had finally faded away. And honestly, I was happy too. For the first time in years, life felt stable. Safe. Mark wasn't just my stepdad. He was my hero. The guy who stepped in when no one else would. We moved into his house, which felt like a mansion compared to our old apartment. I got my own room with this huge window that overlooked the backyard. He even helped me decorate it, letting me pick out fairy lights and posters of my favorite bands. And the way he treated mom? It was like something out of a movie. Flowers for no reason, breakfast in bed on weekends, forehead kisses that made her blush like a teenager. I thought, wow, this is what love is supposed to look like. Everything was perfect. Or at least, it seemed perfect. Looking back now, I realize how much I ignored. Little things that didn't make sense. Times when Mark would get these phone calls and step outside, his voice low, his face tense. Or when he'd suddenly cancel plans with us because of work emergencies. Mom never questioned it. She trusted him completely. And so did I. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid attention. But I didn't. Because when you're finally happy after years of pain, you don't want to look for cracks in the glass. You just want to believe it'll never break. If only I knew then that everything I believed about him, about us, was a lie. That the man I called my stepdad, the man I loved like a father, was hiding a secret so dark it would destroy everything. And the first sign of it all? It started the day mom got sick. It was a Saturday morning when I first noticed something was wrong with Mom. She'd always been this unstoppable force, the kind of woman who could work 2 shifts and still come home with a smile for me. But that day, she barely made it out of bed. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked, standing in her doorway. She was curled up under the blanket, her skin pale, her hair sticking to her forehead with sweat. She tried to smile, but it looked forced. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." But Mom was never just tired. Not like this. I wanted to believe her, so I let it go, at least for the day. But then it happened again. And again. Until just tired turned into missing work and spending entire days lying down. Finally, after 2 weeks, Mark convinced her to go to the doctor. He drove her to the appointment while I sat at home pacing the living room, my stomach twisted into knots. When they came back, Mom's face was blank. Mark had his hand on her shoulder, and I could tell by the way he avoided my eyes that it wasn't good news. That night, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she reached for mine. "Layla, I need you to be strong, okay? They found something. A tumor." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Tumor. I couldn't breathe. My ears were ringing. "They said it's treatable," she continued quickly, squeezing my hands like she could transfer her strength into me. "But it's going to take time. Surgery, maybe chemo." Her voice cracked, and she looked away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her this wasn't fair. But all I could do was nod and blink back tears because I didn't want to make it harder for her. Mark pulled me into a hug, his voice deep and reassuring. "Don't worry, kiddo. We're going to get through this. I promise." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He'd never given me a reason not to trust him. But things started changing after that. Slowly at first, like a storm creeping in from the distance. Mom had to quit her job at the diner because she couldn't stand for long hours anymore. That meant Mark was the only one bringing in money. I remember overhearing him on the phone with someone one night, his voice sharp. "I can't keep covering everything on my own. It's draining me." It stung to hear that because wasn't this what family was supposed to do? Take care of each other? But I told myself he was just stressed. Anyone would be, right? He started working late. A lot. Sometimes he wouldn't come home until after midnight, claiming he had client emergencies or paperwork at the office. Mom didn't question it, but I noticed. I noticed the way he stopped bringing her flowers. The way he flinched when she asked for help with medical bills. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found him staring at a stack of envelopes, his jaw tight. When he saw me, he shoved them into a drawer and forced a smile. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Just bills. Nothing for you to worry about." But I did worry. Because I saw the word "past due" stamped on one of those envelopes. As Mom's treatment started, things got even harder. She lost her hair, her energy, her smile. And I tried to be strong for her. I cooked simple meals, cleaned the house, even got a part-time job at the library after school to help with groceries. I thought Mark would appreciate it, but instead, he started pulling away from me too. He barely talked to me anymore, except for short, clipped sentences. And when he did look at me, there was something in his eyes I couldn't place. Something cold. One night, I overheard him on the phone again. I was coming down the stairs when I heard his voice from the living room, low and harsh. "I can't do this anymore. She's draining me." They both are. I need out before it ruins everything. My heart stopped. Who was he talking about? Mom and me? What did he mean, out? I pressed my back against the wall, my breath caught in my throat as I listened. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. She still thinks I'm the perfect husband. But I can't waste my life on a sinking ship. You know what I want. You know the plan. The plan. Those words echoed in my head like a warning bell. I ran back upstairs before he could see me, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but who would believe me? This was Mark. The man who promised he'd always show up for us. The man Mom loved with her whole heart. Lying in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling, my chest heavy with fear. What was he planning? And what did he mean by before it ruins everything? I told myself maybe I misunderstood. Maybe he was talking about work. But deep down, I knew better. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Over the next few days, I started noticing more things. The way he avoided eye contact with Mom. The way he smiled too much around her, like he was overcompensating. The way he locked his office door when he was home, a door he never used to lock. And then, one afternoon, I found something that confirmed my worst fears. It was a Tuesday. Mom was at her chemo session, and Mark had gone out for one of his meetings. I was cleaning the living room when I knocked over a stack of papers he'd left on the coffee table. As I bent down to pick them up, something caught my eye. An envelope, thick, with the corner of a document sticking out. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something in my gut told me I had to. I slid the paper out just enough to read the first line. Dissolution of marriage agreement. My hands went cold. He was planning to divorce Mom. While she was sick. While she needed him the most. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because when I pulled the document out completely, I saw something else, a name I didn't recognize. A woman's name. Listed as a beneficiary on some financial paperwork clipped to the back. And that's when the truth started to unravel. Mark wasn't just planning to leave us. He had someone else. And I had no idea how deep his betrayal really went. My hands were trembling so hard that I almost dropped the papers. I couldn't breathe. I stared at those words like they were written in fire. Dissolution of marriage agreement. Divorce. While Mom was lying in a hospital bed fighting for her life, the man she trusted, the man I trusted, was planning to leave her. And the name. God, that name burned into my brain. Melissa Grant. I didn't know who she was, but the way it was written on the attached financial documents made it clear she wasn't just some random person. Mark had made her his beneficiary. That meant if something happened to him, she would get everything. Not Mom. Not me. Some woman we'd never even heard of. My first thought was to confront him right then and there, but I knew I couldn't. If I accused him without proof, he'd find a way to twist it. He'd make me look like a paranoid kid. And what if he took it out on Mom? The thought made me sick. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started digging. That night, I barely slept. My brain was on fire, running through 100 worst-case scenarios. By morning, I had a plan. Mark kept his laptop in his office, a room he never let me enter anymore. But I knew his schedule. He left every morning at 8:30 for work, and Mom's chemo appointments usually lasted until noon. That gave me a 2-hour window. The next day, as soon as he left, I crept into his office. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure the neighbors could hear it. His laptop was on the desk, closed but not locked in the drawer. Thank God for small miracles. I opened it and prayed he didn't have some crazy password. Turns out, he didn't. It was the same one he always used. Ohyrox 32. I almost laughed. Almost. Once I was in, I didn't even know where to start. Emails? Documents? Bank accounts? I clicked on his email first. And that's when everything shattered. There were dozens of emails between him and Melissa. The earliest one dated back almost a year, around the time Mom and Mark celebrated their first anniversary. My stomach churned as I read his words. Can't wait until this is over and we can finally be together. She has no idea. Playing the perfect husband is exhausting, but it'll be worth it. And then Melissa's replies, cold and calculated. Make sure everything is in your name before you pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. Those words made my blood run cold. But it wasn't just an affair. No, it was worse. From what I could piece together, Mark had married my mom for her money, or rather, for what he thought was her money. The emails mentioned her life insurance policy, her savings, and even the house. The house he made us move into. It wasn't even fully his. Mom had paid a huge chunk of the mortgage when they got married. And now that she was sick, now that she couldn't fight back, he was planning to take everything and run off with Melissa. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to smash his laptop into pieces. But instead, I took pictures. Every email, every document, every shred of proof, I photographed it all with shaking hands. Just as I was about to close the laptop, I saw something else. A folder on his desktop labeled Personal. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside were scanned copies of legal documents, old newspaper articles, and a mugshot. My breath caught in my throat. It was Mark. Younger, maybe 10 years ago, but definitely him. The headline above the article made my blood run cold. Local man arrested for fraud and embezzlement scheme. I couldn't believe what I was reading. He had a record. He'd been to prison. And Mom had no idea. He'd lied about everything. His past, his money, his intentions. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a calculated con. I slammed the laptop shut and stumbled out of the office, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, going through the motions while my mind screamed, what do I do? Who do I tell? When Mark came home that evening, I watched him like a hawk. He kissed Mom on the cheek, asked about her day, smiled that perfect smile, and all I could see was the monster behind it. The liar. The thief. At dinner, he turned to me and said, "You've been quiet today, kiddo. Everything okay?" It took everything in me not to explode. I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, just tired." But inside, I was screaming. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, clutching my phone with all the evidence saved on it. I had to tell Mom. But how? She was already so fragile. If I told her now, it could break her. And if I waited, he could take everything. The worst part? I couldn't shake those words from Melissa's email. Pull the trigger. What if this wasn't just about divorce? What if he was planning something worse? The thought kept me awake until the early hours of the morning. And that's when I made my decision. I was going to follow him. If he was planning something, I needed to know what. I needed more proof, enough to take to the police if I had to. The next day, when he left for work, I waited 15 minutes and then grabbed Mom's old car keys. My hands were shaking as I pulled out of the driveway, keeping a safe distance behind his black SUV. He didn't go to his office. He drove across town to a fancy restaurant, the kind of place you go for anniversaries or proposals. I parked far enough away that he wouldn't see me and watched as he walked inside. 5 minutes later, she showed up. Melissa. Tall, blonde, wearing a red dress that practically screamed, "Look at me." She kissed him. Right there in the parking lot. Like they didn't have a care in the world. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I snapped pictures through the windshield, each click of the camera making my stomach twist tighter. They went inside, and I sat there for what felt like hours, my heart pounding like a drum. When they finally came out, I saw something that nearly made me scream. He handed her an envelope. Thick, just like the one I'd found at home. She opened it, glanced at the papers inside, and smiled. Then she kissed him again. And that's when I knew this wasn't just an affair. It was a deal. A plan. Something that was going to ruin my mom, and maybe me too. As I drove home that night, tears blurred my vision. The man who promised to show up for us was plotting to destroy us. And the worst part? I still didn't know how far he was willing to go to make it happen. But I was about to find out. I couldn't keep it in any longer. After what I saw at the restaurant, the pictures I took, the emails I read, it was like a volcano building inside me, ready to blow. Every time Mark walked into a room and smiled like everything was fine, it made my skin crawl. Every time he kissed Mom's forehead, I wanted to scream the truth in his face. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I needed to figure out the safest way to do it. I couldn't just accuse him without a plan. If I did, and he got angry. What if he hurt Mom? What if he hurt me? The next 2 days were pure torture. I barely ate, barely slept, and every time Mark looked at me, I wondered if he could tell I knew, if he could see it in my eyes. Then, on Friday night, it happened. Everything exploded. Mom had a rough day after chemo, so she went to bed early. Mark and I were alone in the kitchen. I was washing dishes, my hands shaking so badly that a glass slipped and shattered in the sink. Careful, he said, stepping closer. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, like he was studying me. Sorry, I muttered, grabbing a towel to clean up the mess. You've been acting different, he said slowly. Quiet, jumpy. Something you want to tell me? I froze. My back was to him, but I could feel his gaze burning into me. My mind screamed play it cool, but my mouth betrayed me. Why don't you tell me? I shot back, turning around to face him. His eyebrows lifted. Excuse me? I slammed the towel down on the counter. You think I don't know? About Melissa? About the divorce papers? About the money you're trying to take from Mom while she's sick? For a second, he didn't move. His face didn't change. And that scared me more than if he had started yelling. Then, slowly, he smiled. A cold, cruel smile that made my stomach flip. Well, he said, leaning against the counter, looks like you've been busy. The calmness in his voice made my blood run cold. He wasn't even denying it. Who are you? I whispered. Because you're not the man Mom thinks you are. Oh, sweetheart, he said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. I'm exactly who she thinks I am. The man who saved her from a miserable life. The man who gave her everything she wanted. Everything she wanted? I snapped. She wanted love. She wanted a family. And you. My voice cracked. You were just using her. He shrugged, as if I'd just stated the weather. She had something I needed. That's how the world works, Layla. People trade what they have for what they want. I felt sick. She doesn't have anything. She quit her job, Mark. She's fighting for her life. Which makes it easier, he cut in, his voice low and sharp now. Do you know what it's like to work your ass off for years and have nothing to show for it? Do you know what it's like to start over after people take everything from you? I stared at him, confused and terrified. What are you talking about? And that's when he dropped the bomb. Your mom wasn't my first chance, he said, his eyes darkening. I had a life before this. A wife. A business. Everything was perfect until some greedy partners screwed me over and sent me to prison for something they were all guilty of. Fraud, embezzlement, whatever word you want to use. They walked away clean, and I lost everything. The mugshot, the article. It all clicked. You're a criminal, I whispered. His smile widened. Ex-convict, technically. And you know what prison teaches you? That nobody cares about fairness. You take what you can, when you can. Or you get crushed. My hands were shaking so hard I thought I'd drop the dish towel again. So you decided to crush Mom instead? She was convenient, he said with a shrug, like it was no big deal. Single mom, struggling, desperate for stability. Easy to charm, easy to control. And then she got sick, and well, he smirked. Let's just say the timeline moved up a little. I felt bile rise in my throat. You're disgusting. He stepped closer, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made me take a step back. Careful, Layla. You don't want to make me your enemy. Or what? I shot back, even though my voice shook. You'll do to me what you're doing to her? You'll lie to my face and steal everything we have? His expression hardened. Stay out of this. This is between me and your mother. If you keep your mouth shut, everything will be fine. You'll get a nice little check when this is all over. College money. A fresh start. But if you interfere. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said enough. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to make him hurt the way he was hurting us. But instead, I turned and ran upstairs, locking my bedroom door behind me. My whole body shook as I slid down the wall, tears streaming down my face. I pulled out my phone and stared at the pictures, the emails, the mugshot. Proof. I had proof. But proof didn't feel like enough when the man downstairs was capable of. What, exactly? How far would he go to protect his plan? That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every sound made me wonder if he was coming for me. By morning, I knew one thing. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to tell Mom. Even if it broke her heart. Even if it shattered her world. Because if I didn't, he was going to destroy us both. I waited until her next chemo appointment when Mark left for work. In the car, on the way home, I told her everything. The emails. The other woman. The divorce papers. His criminal past. All of it. At first, she just stared at me, her face pale, her lips trembling. Then she whispered, "No. No, he wouldn't." "Mom," I said, my voice cracking. "I have proof. Look." I handed her my phone, and she scrolled through the pictures with shaking hands. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. But behind the tears, I saw something else. Anger. Pure, burning anger. "I gave him everything," she whispered. "I trusted him with my life. With you." I reached for her hand. "We're going to fix this, Mom. We're going to make sure he never hurts us again." But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. Because men like Mark, they don't just walk away when they're exposed. They fight. They claw. They destroy. And that night, when we got home, I realized just how dangerous he really was. Because he was waiting for us. And he knew. The second we pulled into the driveway, I felt it in my gut. Something was wrong. The curtains were drawn tight, and the porch light flickered like a warning. My heart thudded against my ribs as I turned to Mom. "Stay in the car," I whispered. She shook her head. "No." We faced him together. Before I could argue, the front door opened. And there he was. Mark. Standing in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim hallway light. He wasn't smiling this time. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Welcome home," he said slowly, his voice low and dangerous. I gripped my phone in my pocket, my thumb hovering over the emergency dial button. Every instinct in me screamed run, but my feet stayed planted. Mom walked up the steps first, her chin lifted like a soldier marching into battle. I followed, my legs trembling so badly I thought they'd give out. The moment we stepped inside, he shut the door behind us with a soft click that sounded louder than a gunshot in the silence. "You've been busy," he said, his eyes cutting to me. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" His lips curled into a smirk. "Don't play dumb, Layla. I know you told her. I know you've been snooping." He took a step closer, and I instinctively stepped in front of Mom. "Stay away from her," I snapped. He chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "Protecting her now, are we? That's cute. But you should have thought about what this would cost you before you opened your mouth." "Cost us?" Mom's voice shook, but her eyes burned with fury. "You've already taken enough, Mark. You took my trust, my peace, my..." Her voice cracked. "You pretended to love me." "Pretended?" he repeated, tilting his head like he was considering it. "I didn't pretend. I gave you a good life, didn't I? Better than you ever would have had without me." "A good life?" Mom's voice rose, trembling with rage. "While you were planning to throw us away like trash? While you were meeting her, Melissa, behind my back?" His eyes narrowed. "You think I wanted it this way? You think I wanted to waste my life with a sick woman and her brat of a daughter?" Something inside me snapped. "You're a liar," I spat. "You never cared about us. You just wanted what you could take. That's all you've ever been, a thief." His face twisted with anger, and for a second, I thought he was going to hit me. His fist clenched at his side, his knuckles white. Mom stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Get out, Mark. He laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. You think you can throw me out? This is my house. My name is on everything. Not for long, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I have proof. Emails, documents, your mugshot. Everything. If you don't leave, I'm going to the police. And then everyone will know what you are. His eyes flicked to me, and for the first time, I saw something, fear. Just a flash, but it was there. You wouldn't, he said slowly. Try me, I whispered. For a long moment, the three of us stood there in the silence, the tension so thick it felt like the walls were closing in. Then, finally, he exhaled a sharp breath and stepped back, his smirk returning like a mask. You think you've won, huh? He said, his voice dripping with venom. Fine. You want me gone? I'll go. But don't come crying when the world chews you up and spits you out. Because without me, you're nothing. Without you, Mom said quietly, we're free. Something flickered in his eyes, rage, maybe even regret, but then he grabbed his keys, yanked open the door, and walked out. Just like that. No apologies. No goodbyes. The sound of his car engine fading down the street was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I stood there in the living room, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Mom sank onto the couch, her face pale, her shoulders slumped like all the strength had drained out of her. Mom, I whispered, rushing to her side. Are you okay? She looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. And then she broke. She sobbed like I'd never seen her sob before, her whole body shaking as she clung to me like I was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. I'm so sorry, she cried. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. No, Mom, I said, holding her tight. You did everything you could. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, wrapped in each other's arms, both of us broken, but somehow still standing. The next day, we changed the locks. I sent copies of the evidence to the police and to a lawyer Mom found through a friend. It turned out Mark had more skeletons in his closet than we could have imagined. The emails, the documents, they were enough to start an investigation. He didn't come back. Not once. But for weeks, every time a car slowed down in front of the house, my stomach flipped. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. It'll take a long time before that fear goes away. Mom finished her treatment 3 months later. She's still recovering, still tired, but she's stronger than I've ever seen her. We sold the house and moved into a smaller place, just the two of us, like it was before. Sometimes, late at night, I think about everything that happened, about how close we came to losing everything. And I wonder, did Mark ever love us? Even a little? Or were we just pieces in his game from the start? I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. But here's what I do know. Love should never feel like fear. It should never feel like walking on eggshells or wondering when the person you trust will turn on you. Love is supposed to build you up, not tear you down. And as for Mark, he can keep his lies, his greed, his empty promises. Because we're done playing by his rules. Mom and I, we survived. And that's more than he can ever take from us. Epilogue. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled in handwriting I knew all too well. I didn't open it. I burned it. Because the past may knock on your door, but you don't have to let it in.